I analyzed 100 Airbnb listings, not my clients, not cherry picked success stories, just 100 random properties pulled from markets across the country. The average host was leaving $17,000 a year on the table, not because their property was bad, not because their market was soft. In most cases, the demand was there. Guests were searching, the money existed, it just wasn't going to them. And the worst case I found, one listing, one host, $37,000 in a single year. Gone, and they had no idea. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why that happens, but I'll be upfront with you right now. This video is going to raise more questions than it answers, and that's intentional. Because what I found across those 100 listings isn't a single fix, it's a systems problem. And the only way to diagnose it properly is to look at your specific data. And I will show you how to do that at the end, so stay with me. Before I get into the data, let me tell you who this is actually for. If you just listed your property and you're still figuring out all the basics, watch this. It'll be useful, but bookmark it and come back in 6 months once you have real booking data to work with. You'll get 10 times more value out of it then. This video is for hosts who are already in the game. You've got at least one listing, maybe a few. You've dealt with guests, the pricing tools, the cleaning coordination, all of it. You've put real time, real money, and real energy into this business already. And at some point, maybe recently or maybe a while ago, things either plateaued or quietly started going in the wrong direction. And you just couldn't put your finger on why. You're not struggling, you're not a beginner, you're an operator who's hitting a ceiling you can't fully see. That's exactly who this is for. Here's my background because it matters for what I'm about to show you. I built a short-term rental portfolio to over $100,000 a month using arbitrage, renting other people's properties and subletting them on Airbnb. At our peak, we had units across 3 states, and then I almost lost everything. Not because the market crashed, because I had massive fixed costs, leases, overhead, and when bookings slowed down, I had nothing to absorb the hit. And the honest truth, I didn't actually understand how the Airbnb platform worked. I was optimized for the wrong things the entire time. I just got lucky with the volume. Rebuilding that business took 2 years, and during that process, I went deep. I mean deep, on what the algorithm actually rewards, not what Airbnb says that it rewards. What the data shows it rewards. I came out the other side with the system. More revenue, fewer units, less overhead, a business I can actually run without being glued to my phone at midnight, making tweaks and hoping Airbnb notices. The problems I found on my own portfolio, those are the same problems I found in those 100 listings. So let's talk about them. Before I get into any specific factors, I need to address something that almost every host I work with gets wrong. The superhost badge. Here's what stopped me when I went through those 100 listings. Most of the hosts with the biggest revenue gaps, the ones losing $17,000 a year, or even the one losing $37,000, were all superhosts. 4.8 ratings or above, high response rates, glowing reviews. Airbnb gave them the badge, and they looked at that badge and thought, I'm doing everything right, so why aren't my numbers where they should be? Here's the reality. Superhost status and algorithmic performance are not the same thing. Airbnb would tell you the badge gives you a visibility boost, and technically it does. But what they don't tell you is how small that boost is relative to the signals that actually drive your ranking. Think about it this way. You can be an excellent employee, punctual, thorough, everyone loves working with you, but if you've never learned how performance reviews actually work at your company, you'll keep getting passed over for raises. Not because you're bad at your job, because you're being evaluated on criteria you don't even know exist. That's what's happening for most Airbnb hosts right now. They're doing the visible stuff well, reviews, response rate, cleanliness, but the algorithm is running a completely separate evaluation on different criteria. And most hosts are failing it without even knowing it because Airbnb has no reason to tell them. When I looked at those 100 listings, I wasn't looking at ratings and reviews. I was looking at the signals the algorithm actually uses to decide who gets shown to guests. And that's where things got very interesting. Here's a mental model that changes how you think about everything on this platform. Most hosts assume that when a guest searches Airbnbs in their market, Airbnb shows that guest their listing. And it might, but Airbnb isn't showing your listing to everyone who searches. It's showing your listing to a specific subset of guests, what I call your guest pool. This is based on who you've told Airbnb you want to host and how well your listing has been performing for that pool. And here's what almost no one talks about. That pool can be dramatically smaller than you think. And most of the time, it's the host who shrunk it, not Airbnb, not the market, the host, through their own settings. If you have a 3-night minimum, you've eliminated every guest searching for 1 or 2 nights. If your pricing falls outside the competitive range for your market, too high and sometimes even too low, the algorithm deprioritizes you in results. If you've got certain availability settings in place that Airbnb reads as signals your property doesn't fit a specific use case, it stops showing you to guests searching for that use case. None of these feel like big mistakes when you make them. A lot of them are defaults. A lot of them make sense 6 months ago, but every single one quietly limits how many guests can even reach your listing. And that's before a single click ever happens. Now stack 3 or 4 of those together, suddenly you're not competing with other listings in your market. You're not even in the race for a significant portion of your potential bookings. You're invisible to a huge segment of demand, and you have absolutely no way of knowing it from inside your dashboard. When I started looking at listings through this lens, not how are they performing, but how many guests can even find them, the revenue gap started making a lot more sense, and this is just one factor. Now let me tell you about what I call zombie settings. These are configurations inside your Airbnb dashboard. Availability rules, pricing structures, booking requirements, category tags that you set up at some point in the past and completely forgot about. They're still running and they're still affecting your listing every single day. And most hosts have no idea they're even there. I'm not going to walk through the full list right now because identifying them properly requires looking at your specific listing, but I can tell you the 4 areas where I find them most often. Number 1 is availability settings, minimum stay rules, advanced notice requirements, preparation time between bookings, and booking window restrictions that are filtering out guests you'd happily accept. Number 2 is pricing rule layers, promotional discounts, length of stay adjustments, and dynamic pricing overrides that contradict each other and create uncompetitive pricing for specific date ranges. Number 3 is guest requirement settings, ID verification, thresholds, and review history requirements that shrink your eligible guest pool without meaningfully improving the guests you get. Number 4, category and amenity tags. How Airbnb classifies your listing determines which search categories it appears in. Outdated tags can quietly pull you out of searches you should be winning. And here's what makes zombie settings particularly dangerous. They're invisible to guests. You won't get a bad review because of them. You won't get a complaint. You'll just get fewer bookings than your listing deserves and no feedback that explains why. The host with the $37,000 gap, when we went through their listing together, we found 7 settings that were either actively suppressing their visibility or filtering out guests they had zero reason to filter out. 7. Some of them have been in place for over a year. Most hosts go into their settings when something breaks or when they're setting up a new listing and then they move on. The settings stay exactly where they are and the listing quietly deteriorates in the rankings without a single red flag to explain why. This is the first thing I look at in every listing audit. Before photos, before pricing, because if the foundational settings are wrong, nothing else you fix is going to move the needle the way it should. When bookings drop, most hosts do the same thing. They drop the price. And sometimes it works in the short term. Hosts who have a perfectly reasonable nightly rate, but completely the wrong pricing structure for how the algorithm actually reads it. Here's what I mean. Airbnb doesn't just look at your nightly rate, it looks at how your pricing behaves relative to demand. It looks at whether you're competitive for the specific date ranges guests are actually searching. And critically, it looks at your effective price, the all-in cost to the guest after fees and cleaning. I'll give you a real example. A host with a $150 nightly rate looks reasonable on the surface, but if their cleaning fee is $200 and their minimum stay is 3 nights, the effective nightly cost to a guest is $217. And if every comparable listing in that market is coming in under $180 all in, that host isn't slightly less competitive. They're filtering themselves out of most searches without realizing their nightly rate looks fine, their pricing architecture is broken. You can't price your way out of a visibility problem, and you can't price drop your way to sustain revenue. Dynamic pricing tools are useful. I use them, my clients use them, but they optimize the nightly rate. They don't optimize your entire pricing architecture. They don't account for your zombie settings. They don't look at your comp set positioning. They adjust the number. That's all. And here's the part that surprises most hosts. Some listings are actually underpriced in ways that hurt them algorithmically. Airbnb's algorithm uses price as a signal of listing quality. A listing price significantly below its market can get shown to guests who are less likely to book, which suppresses your conversion rate, which suppresses your ranking, which reduces your booking velocity, which pushes you further down the results. I know that sounds backwards, but pricing is a signal, not just a transaction. The algorithm reads it that way, and most hosts aren't thinking about it that way. Now this one catches almost everyone off guard. A lot of the hosts that I talk to have been through some version of optimization before. They updated their photos, rewrote their title, did some pricing research, and it worked for a while. Then it stopped. And now they're back where they started, wondering what changed. What changed is that Airbnb's algorithm is dynamic. It's not a static system that evaluates your listing once and locks in a ranking. It's continuously reevaluating based on recent performance signals. That means the optimization work you did 6 months ago had a real positive impact at the time, but it didn't permanently elevate your ranking. The algorithm is far more interested in what your listing has done in the last 60 days than what it did last year. Any one-time optimization decays. Within 60 to 90 days, a listing that was manually improved once without ongoing adjustment starts losing its position as the algorithm refreshes its evaluation. And the market shifts underneath you too. Your comp set isn't static. New listings enter the market, other hosts upgrade, pricing baselines move, guest preferences evolve. What made your listing competitive last year may not make it competitive today, even if you haven't changed a single thing. This is why I'm skeptical of anyone selling optimization as a one-time service. You can fix someone's listing once, but without a system to keep it aligned with a moving algorithm in a shifting market, you're just delaying the outcome. The host who performs consistently month after month, year after year, aren't the ones who optimized once. They're the ones who understand how the algorithm works well enough to stay aligned with it continuously. It's a fundamentally different approach, and it's the approach almost no one takes. Let me put this together. When hosts come to me, they describe their problem one of three ways. My bookings are down, my occupancy is lower than it used to be, I'm not generating the revenue I was 6 months ago. Those are all real problems, but they're symptoms. They're the output. And almost all the advice hosts get, lower your price, get better photos, respond faster, chase more reviews, is all aimed at symptoms too. The root cause question is completely different. Why is Airbnb showing my listing to fewer guests? That's a visibility problem. Why are fewer guests clicking when they do see it? That's a positioning problem. Why are the guests who click on it not booking? That's a conversion problem. 3 different diagnostic questions, 3 different answers, 3 different fixes. A listing with a guest pool problem needs a different intervention than a listing with a conversion rate problem. A listing with zombie settings suppressing its reach is a different situation from a listing with a broken pricing architecture. But from the host perspective, from inside the dashboard, they all look the same. Not enough bookings. Most optimization advice gets applied randomly. Try this, tweak that, and occasionally something sticks. But without knowing which root cause is actually driving your revenue gap, you are guessing. And based on what I found in those 100 listings, guessing cost about $17,000 a year on average. Here's the honest part. Diagnosing the actual root cause requires looking at your specific listing, your market, your real comp set, your settings, your performance data. There's no universal 5-step fix I can hand to you and say this works for everyone. The host who applied generic advice and watched it not work already know exactly why that's true. Let me put this in real numbers for a moment. The average revenue gap across those 100 listings was $17,000 a year. That's roughly $1,400 a month per listing. If you have 2 listings with the same profile, and in my experience, most experienced hosts are making similar mistakes across their entire portfolio. That's $2,800 a month. $34,000 a year. And I want to be precise about what that number means. This isn't theoretical upside. This isn't what you could make in a perfect market. This is the gap between what these listings were earning and what comparable listings in the same market, same city, same property type, similar guest profile were earning with better algorithmic positioning. Real money, real guest, real bookings, just going to someone else. Now, here's what I think is the most important thing to take from all of this. None of the hosts in that analysis knew they had a problem. Not one of them opened their Airbnb app that morning thinking, I wonder how much I'm leaving on the table. They thought they were doing fine. Some of them thought they were doing great. And that's the actual issue. You don't know what you don't know. And Airbnb is not going to tell you. There's no notification that says your booking velocity is down compared to your comp set, or your minimum stay setting is filtering out 40% of guests searching in your market. That data does exist, but you have to know exactly where to look for it and how to interpret it when you do find it. So here's what I want to offer you. To properly figure out your revenue gap, you normally need to pay $100 a month or more for a data platform like AirDNA, and then spend real time learning how to use it correctly. Most hosts either don't do it or they do it wrong. So what I decided to do is run a live listing audit call. Here's what that means. I take your actual listing, pull your real comp set, look at your specific market data, identify where your guest pool is being restricted, and surface the revenue you're leaving behind. And I do it all live on a group call. So you can see exactly what I'm looking at and ask questions in real time. This is not a general tips session, not a here are 10 things every host should do presentation. It's your listing, your data, your specific gap. The link to register is in the description. It's totally free. Spots are limited because I'm actually doing live work on each listing. So if there's availability when you're watching this, go ahead and grab it. And if this video gave you something useful, hit subscribe. Everything I put out is built specifically for hosts who are past the basics and want to actually understand how this platform works at a systems level. Not tips, not tweaks, the actual mechanics. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the audit call.